The tactical chess match between Sabalenka and Gauff is one of the most fascinating in the sport. It is a clash of philosophies, a battle where the winner is often determined by who can impose their version of the match on the other. For Sabalenka, the plan is simple, yet brutally effective. She must be the aggressor from the very first point. She will step inside the baseline, unleash heavy forehands into the corners, and use her booming first serve to earn cheap points and open up the court for her devastating ground strokes. The key for Sabalenka is to keep the points short. She wants to dictate, to force Gauff onto the back foot, and to prevent the American from finding any rhythm. She aims to solve the math problem quickly and efficiently, using overwhelming force to short-circuit Gauff's defensive strategies. The danger lies in the what if. What if the heavy artillery isn't enough? What if Gauff gets a read on the serve, or the court slows down just enough for her to extend the rallies? This is where Sabalenka's technical game can become her biggest liability. When her big shots aren't finding the lines, the errors begin to mount. A double fault here, a wild forehand there. This lack of a reliable plan B has historically been her undoing against Gauff. The Belarusian tends to play with a high-risk, high-reward strategy, and when the reward isn't there, the risk can be devastating. Conversely, Gauff's technical game is designed for survival and counterattack. She is a defensive juggernaut, using her superior speed and athleticism to retrieve balls that would be winners against almost anyone else. She will look to neutralize Sabalenka's first serve, getting it back in play no matter what, and then construct the point from a neutral position. Gauff's backhand is a weapon of consistency, and she is adept at using her slice to change the pace and break up Sabalenka's rhythm. Gauff will look to force errors, to make Sabalenka hit one more shot, one more risky angle, until the 2023 scenario repeats itself. She plays the percentages, drawing power players into uncomfortable, extended rallies where their patience and technique often crack. But this is where a critical subplot develops: Gauff's service motion. Historically, her serve has been a technical liability. The statistics speak for themselves, with a double fault count that often exceeds her ace count, a troubling trend for a top player. This is not just a small quirk, it's a significant weakness that Sabalenka, as a top returner, can exploit. Yet, a major shift has occurred in 2025. Gauff has taken the bold step of bringing in biomechanics specialist Gavin McMillan, the very same man who helped Aryna Sabalenka fix her own service yips a few years ago. This is a stroke of genius and a potential game-changer for Gauff. A more confident, reliable serve is the missing piece in Gauff's puzzle, and if it's solved, she could become nearly unbeatable on hard courts. If the technical game forms the skeleton of this rivalry, the mental game is its beating heart. This is where the battle is truly won and lost, and it is perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the Sabalenka-Gauff dynamic. The head-to-head is deadlocked at 6-6, a statistic that perfectly reflects the emotional roller coaster these two have taken us on. Sabalenka often starts these matches like a runaway train. She sees Gauff on the other side of the net and likely remembers the sting of defeat, fueling a fiery desire to dominate. She wins the first set, often emphatically, and looks unbeatable. She appears to be cruising to a straightforward victory. And then Gauff goes to work. As the match progresses, a subtle shift occurs. The easy winners for Sabalenka become harder to find. She has to hit more balls. She starts to feel the pressure of her own expectations, a deep-seated fear that this historic rivalry might be slipping away from her again. As the commentary on the Tennis.com preview noted, when Gauff mounts a comeback, Sabalenka can't believe it, and she doesn't react well. This is the crux of the mental problem for the world number one. She has lost 2 Grand Slam finals to Gauff in this exact fashion, taking the lead, then watching it evaporate as her own emotions get the better of her. The doubt creeps in. The powerful strokes tighten up. The sure victory suddenly seems anything but. This is where Gauff excels. She is a mental gladiator. When she is down, she doesn't panic. She accepts the challenge and finds a way to grind her way back into the match. She has a belief in her own ability to outlast and outthink her opponent, a belief that has been tested and proven on the biggest stages. As her ex-coach, Brad Gilbert, has pointed out, the gap in the women's game is narrow. Sabalenka at number 1 is beatable, And players are starting to believe it. Gauff embodies that belief. She doesn't fear Sabalenka's power, she forces the issue and pushes the world number one into a corner. And then Gauff goes to work. As the match progresses, a subtle shift occurs. The easy winners for Sabalenka become harder to find. She has to hit more balls. She starts to feel the pressure of her own expectations, a deep-seated fear that this historic rivalry might be slipping away from her again. As the commentary on the Tennis.com preview noted, when Gauff mounts a comeback, Sabalenka can't believe it, and she doesn't react well. However, Sabalenka's mental game is not a static flaw. She is showing signs of evolution. The fact that she hired McMillan to fix Gauff's serve shows a high level of strategic awareness. More tellingly, her 2026 Miami Open victory over Gauff was a significant step forward. It was her first hard-court final win over the American, ending a 0-9 record for Gauff in such matches. This victory likely came with a huge exhalation of relief for Sabalenka. It proved to her that she can beat Gauff on a big stage, even when Gauff fights back and takes a set. The mental block isn't insurmountable. It is a hurdle she is actively learning to overcome. The big question for the 2025 US Open is this: has Sabalenka truly learned from her past mistakes? Can she control the inner turmoil when the tide turns? Or will the ghosts of New York and Roland Garros come back to haunt her as Gauff begins to mount yet another comeback? Conversely, can Gauff use her newfound serving confidence to avoid falling into an early hole in the first place? The mental battle at Flushing Meadows will be a crucible that will test the very core of their identities as athletes. So, after dissecting the power, the technique, and the psyche, we arrive at the question that matters most. Who has the better chance of walking away with the title? A complete analysis of the path to the final is also essential. Sabalenka's draw is projected to be a minefield. She could face a tricky test in the fourth round, and a potential quarterfinal date with a red-hot Jasmine Paolini is far from ideal. A semi-final clash with Jessica Pegula, who reached the final in 2024, would be a massive obstacle before she even contemplates the final. For Gauff, her path is no easier. It's a stacked section that features a potential fourth-round blockbuster against the dangerous Naomi Osaka. Then, a quarterfinal against another American powerhouse, Madison Keys, looms large. Both players have treacherous roads ahead. However, looking at the bigger picture, the evidence suggests that Aryna Sabalenka holds a slight, yet distinct, edge. But it comes down to her sustained dominance and the small margins of recent history. First, her overall form is undeniable. The 2026 season has been a masterclass in dominance. She has won 23 of her 24 matches, and the only blemish was a final loss to Elena Rybakina. She is playing the best tennis of her life and seems to have built a formidable mental fortress. The Sunshine double victory in Indian Wells and Miami proves she can dominate on hard courts against the best in the world. Second, she has just proven she can beat Gauff when it matters. The Miami final was a watershed moment. She didn't just beat Gauff, she survived a fight back. This victory was likely crucial for her mental state, erasing a significant psychological disadvantage. Gauff has been a bogey opponent for her, but Sabalenka has now shown she can slay that dragon on a hard court. She has shown that she can find a way to win even when Gauff is playing her game. Third, the serving dilemma. While Gauff has taken the right step by hiring McMillan, a biomechanical change takes time. It is a complex process that involves years of muscle memory. She might be working on it in practice, but can it hold up under the pressure of a Grand Slam final at Arthur Ashe Stadium? The early signs in 2025 suggest she was still struggling with her serve, and a flawed serve is a fatal liability against a player of Sabalenka's returning quality. Until we see it in a pressure cooker match, it remains a question mark. For these reasons, Aryna Sabalenka must be considered the favorite. She is the defending champion for a reason. She is the world number one for a reason. She is the more consistent player and the more powerful player. However, to count Coco Gauff out would be a grave mistake. She is a champion with ice in her veins, who thrives in New York's environment. She has the game to frustrate Sabalenka and force her into the mental abyss that has cost her before. The path is there for Gauff to win. The blueprint is already written. It involves flawless defense, tactical brilliance, and a relentless ability to put one more ball back in play. If she can fix her serve and push the match to a third set, the entire psychological equation flips in her favor. Ultimately, the title could be decided by 1 point, 1 break, or 1 moment of mental fortitude. It will be a war of attrition. And in a war of attrition, the champion who can best manage her emotions and execute her game plan under pressure will be the one to lift the trophy. She must play the match of her life. She has the momentum, the power, and the psychological edge of being the reigning champion. On the hard courts of New York, Aryna Sabalenka has the better chance. The battle lines are drawn, and all we can do is wait for the storm to hit.